IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Mysore Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hi guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Mysore Stories. Before we get on with today's episode, a quick shout out to Manus3426, I guess that's his alter name, for an awesome 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much, buddy. It's much appreciated. If you, as a listener, as a patron, would like to leave feedback, either good, bad, or ugly, make sure to write to us either through the podcast app you use or by writing to us on our email through our website. So we'll make sure to take note of that. And as for today's episode, we celebrate World Heritage Day by making a dash for the heritage city that is close to both our hearts and the place where we live as well. So let's jump into the conversation with our guest, Subhadip Mukherjee, or Indian Vagabond as he calls himself, and find out more.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me on this podcast. It's really nice to be on this channel. Thank you.
Thank you, Subhadip. And it's our pleasure to have like a pro traveler like you speak with us. What we usually do, Subhadip, on the podcast is whenever we have guests, we ask them to take us and our listeners on a journey, on a trip that they made, and discuss everything about that itinerary. So with that in mind, where are you taking us to today?
It's a very beautiful day out here in Kolkata. It's not that warm, and I think the best destination for this evening would be Mysore.
Oh, wonderful. It's close to both Saif and my heart as well, because even locally we are very close to it.
And Faiza has a little bit of work-related history also there. Her first job actually began in
Mysore. Yeah, so I was there for almost 4 months. So yes, we are all excited to hear about Mysore.
Yeah, tell us why Mysore though, Subhadip.
When I was growing up around, say in the 80s, my father was transferred to Bangalore, and we spent around 4 to 5 years in Bangalore. And what used to happen is that all our cousins, when they came to know that we have transferred to Bangalore, they used to come for vacation. And the first thing they would say is that, okay, let's go to Mysore. And so I have visited Mysore quite a few times with my cousins whenever they used to come down to Bangalore. And after that, I shifted back to Kolkata, and it was, I think, nearly in the end 2016, I managed to take my family, that is my wife and my daughter, back to Mysore, and to remember all those memories that I had of Mysore, and to tell her the stories of penguins of Mysore, actually.
Okay, we would like to know the penguin story really soon, and I bet you are a pro already with so much travel to Mysore. So please get started.
I think, I was also going to add that even historically looking at the place, right, Mysore has always been the cultural capital of Karnataka, and even dates back to before that. If you look at the history of Mysore, the Wodeyars of Mysore, who have been prominently ruling that place, as well as the other great rulers that fought the British, like Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali, all of them have a connection to Mysore or the areas around Mysore. So that way, even if you look at it from a historical perspective, Mysore has such an important place in the history of India. So we're really glad that you're taking us to Mysore and showing us around all the important sights and sounds of Mysore that we're just waiting to share with our listeners.
Right, and I think if I'm not wrong, it is also called the Heritage City, if I'm right?
Yeah.
Mysore Heritage City.
Mysore, everything is heritage. I mean, it has too many heritage links.
Oh, wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so please tell us, Subhadip, where are you going to take us in Mysore first?
Yeah, so Mysore, since I'm from Calcutta, Mysore also has a direct link because the Britishers were actually trying to. Tipu Sultan was the last, if you say, the ruler who was the kind of giving a tough time to the Britishers,
Sure.
and by that time they had already established in Kolkata. So for historically also Mysore or Mysuru, whatever you call it right now, is very significant. Basically, if you're traveling to Mysore, you can actually cover Mysore as well as Srirangapatna in 2 days. That would include the zoo, the church, Chamundi Hills, as well as the lakes, The Srirangapatnam itself is a quite a big place that you really need to give some time. And of course, not to forget Brindavan Gardens, which you have to spend the evening and watch those dancing fountains in the evening.
Yeah, the musical fountains, right?
Musical fountains. I mean, you have to see that. So if you on the first day, if you reach and if you start early in the morning, what you can do is the zoo really opens up really early in the morning, and I would always recommend if you're having children or if you like animals to go to the zoo in the early in the morning, because the animals and birds, they are very very fresh from their night sleep and all, and then you would be able to see it's more or less empty out there, so you would really be able to enjoy the zoo. Remember that plastic bags and bottles are not allowed, so when you're going to the zoo, make sure you don't carry any plastic bottles or bags. Even if you do carry, they do exchange your plastic bags with paper bags. So that's a very good thing out there now. And as far as penguins are concerned, in the 80s, there used to be penguins, and they used to have those, just to cool them off, they used to have those big fountains of ice water just to cool them. Wow. But I guess they did not survive long, so they don't have them anymore now. So, but overall, the zoo, it's not a big zoo, but it's very well maintained, and it's a very nice place to have a early morning walk and go around and see the animals. It's a very beautiful, neat and clean museum.
Definitely. And also I think this is one of the older zoos of India also.
Yes, absolutely. And everything has a princely kind of charm to it, because obviously once all these things belong to the king, it does have a heritage. Even the zoo has a heritage, if you see.
And I think the zoo is very well kept as well. They have a lot of new animals, right?
Yeah,
a lot of new animals that keep coming in. I think if I'm not wrong, the latest new addition to the Mysore Zoo has been the white rhino.
Okay.
I didn't see that. I had to say, next time, my next visit, I think that would be my...
Yeah. We all should, I think, because the white rhino is what one of my friends did speak about. So I think maybe next time when we go, we'll get to see something new. Yeah.
And the next important thing would be St. Philomina Church. Okay. This is significant. It was built in 1936, so it's not that old church. But it has a different significance. Is that to build the church, the main assistance about to give the land and to have all those permissions and all came from the Prince, the Maharaj of Mysore, Krishnaraja Wodeyar himself.
Okay.
So if we talk about national integration, where these were a part of the kind of heritage, what they saw, the king really appreciated the different culture, the different people that were coming in. For last 2 years, they are rebuilding this church because it requires a lot of maintenance and all. So when I went 2 years back, the outer area the outer face had already been restored, and the interiors were mostly complete. I mean, so I hope by now it's open, and when you visit the church, make sure that you visit. There are some graves below the altar, so there's a chamber out there, so do visit that. So that's kind of it's spooky, but
I think this is the relic you're referring to, right?
Yes. Right. The relics are kept of Philomina are kept below the church and all. And then there is another. If you're talking about museum, there is something called the railway museum next to the railways. As child, every one of us, especially the boys, want to be an engine driver. So if you go to the railway museum, you will find all those different kinds of railway cars, railway wagons and all. And if you go back to the history, previously there were nothing as such as Indian Railways. So each state had their own railway and all. So Mysore had its own railway network and all. So this was part of the Mysore network and all. They had their own railway wagons and engines and all. So some of these historical things are still kept out here.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff from the British era also, right?
Like absolutely. Because the locomotives, all of them were actually imported from England. So they used to come by steamship either to Bombay or to Calcutta and then travel all the way to Mysore, and they have their own railway and all.
Yeah, it's a nice little museum, cutesy type of museum, but I think for anybody, even for kids to adults, it is something that is worth spending some time at, right?
Absolutely. And talking about museums and art gallery, there is something called the Jagan Mohan Palace, an art gallery. I did a mistake, is that I could not give a lot of time to this museum, but I would recommend you, if you're an art lover, just give it time, because there are paintings of Ravi Verma which needs you just need to stay, and you just will get absolutely mesmerized by the type of painting which were done by him and all. There's a good collection of his painting in this museum. So do give some time. I mean, you should not go around in a hurry.
Yeah, I think if I understand, there is at least over 1,000 paintings that are on display in the museum, right? Outside, apart from Ravi Verma, the other artists as well. There's a lot of them, so one should definitely give some time to the Jagan Mohan Palace and the art gallery as well.
Yes. And unfortunately, I mean, due to some maintenance issues, some of the paintings got damaged and all, but luckily they were able to restore some of them. And 2 years back, they were almost finished restoring the external face of the museum also. So by now, I think it's more or less done. So.
Okay. Even apart from the paintings itself that are the mainstay of the museum, the palace itself, right? It's such a magnificent structure, right?
It's a mini palace in itself. So you have to admire the architecture in a separate light, apart from the art. I mean, if you see that in my blog, I have featured the external photographs also. It's just brilliant and all. And there's another, if you just up ahead from this Jagan Mohan Palace and Art Gallery, there's a temple also. It's not a place to visit, but architecturally also it's a wonderful place, and that's where the temple authorities sit and they maintain for the Chamundi Hills whatever work is done from there. Okay. So it's a beautiful building, and also often it is ignored, but it has got architectural significance because of its type of architecture, very common to the Mysore kind of gharana of architecture. So do give it a glance. I mean, it's no use entering it because it's just an office, but
administrative building, I guess. Right?
Administrative building, but it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's that. I'm sorry to interject, but I think it's that Indo-Sasanic style of architecture, right? That was very popular during those days. If you look at even places in Mumbai, right, the Victoria Terminus, etc.
Mumbai, Kolkata. Even in Kolkata, you have that the Sasanic kind of architecture because that's kind of was in thing. There's a lake, and it's called
the Karanji Lake.
Yeah, when I went out there in the morning, there were boating facilities out there, paddle boats and all, and it's a great time for it's just next to the park, the zoo. You can go with your family and have a just good ride around the lake. It's a short one, but it has got beautiful plants and trees out there. So it's a place to relax and to enjoy the nature. That's one of the best places I would suggest.
Sure, I think that way, Mysore, in terms of diversity and the different variety of places also, right? There's so much, right? From the zoo to the lakes to the palaces to the dams and stuff like that. There's so much different variety, right? To look at.
Yeah, and there is Chamundi Hills, which is of course a hill.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so from there you can just go straight to Chamundi Hills. It does take some time to reach there. And from there on the way there are lots of viewpoints where you get a fantastic view of the entire Mysore, the city. Mm-hmm. So when you're going in a car, do ask your driver to stop because the driver would drive on to Chamundi Hills to the top of the temple. But ask him to stop because you get a fantastic view. And from there on top, you get a very good view of Lalit Mahal Palace also.
Sure. Wow.
So, and once you reach the top of Chamundi Hills, I mean, obviously it's famous for its Chamundeshwari temple,
right.
Which is of course considered as one of the most sacred of it's called the 18 of the Mahashakti Pithas in the Hindu tradition, what they call.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's a black Nandi bull. The Chamundeshwari temple itself, I mean, if you go anytime, there's a huge queue. So do keep in mind the temple timings. If you are interested in visiting the temple, keep that in mind. Then you have to spend some time because the evening aarti, there's a morning aarti, there are different aarti times and all. There's a prasad time also. So you have to give some time if you are visiting there. Sure. If you intend to visit the inside of the temple.
Right. And also the other important structure around the temple, right? The statue of the Mahishasura with the sword and the cobra in his hand.
Cobra in his hand, and that's the one of the common spots for youngsters to take selfie, with Mahishasura.
I remember that structure used to look so huge when we were kids, and we used to get so scared. We used to be like, it's so big. But now I think recently when we went,
it looks just normal.
Exactly,
it does not look that big.
Really, back then I was scared of this huge structure.
But even that has a little bit of history, right? The goddess Chamundeshwari or Durga, as she is otherwise known across India, she apparently killed Mahishasura, right? The Asura, and I think that's how the temple came into being, and that's how it's celebrated, as well as the famous festival of Dussehra, right? This is what
Dussehra, and that Dussehra has everything to do with Mysore. The one thing that what comes to your mind, Dussehra, it has to be Mysore, and the only one structure that come into your mind is the Mysore Palace,
exactly.
the grand Mysore Palace and the elephants and all.
Exactly.
But Mysore Palace is big. What if you really want to see all the structures and internal, all the constructions and the detail of the architecture? Do give it time. I mean, it takes a lot of time to go around Mysore Palace. I asked the locals. I did not visit during Dussehra, but during Dussehra, make sure that you have your hotel bookings in advance, because that's the peak season and it really gets crowded. You would not find any vacant rooms and all, because people from around Mysore as well as from Bangalore as well as nearby states, they come by. Absolutely. That's and with all those grandeur and everything and all. I mean, it's the place to be.
Absolutely.
But if you are visiting, make sure you have everything done in advance, maybe, and then talk to the locals. What is the exact timing? Because it really gets crowded. Make sure you have water, and then you take a good position where you can photograph and see the procession. It really becomes, and of course, in the evening when the whole palace is lit up with all those thousands and thousands of bulbs, it's something great.
Yeah,
and this
is really beautiful to look at. And just a little fun fact: it's apparently close to 1 lakh or 100,000 bulbs that are lit up during that week, right? Not that week, the 10 days of Dussehra. So yeah, it is like grandeur at its best, and given the beautiful architecture, the Indo-Sasanic architecture, etc., it looks really, really beautiful to the eye.
And I think every day evening, or maybe it's on weekends, that the palace is lit as well. Because I remember perfectly that we used to go there, stand and wait till it becomes 7 o'clock and all the lights get switched on. So there was a huge crowd just waiting out there. This is like the days where Dussehra isn't there. I mean, the regular days I'm talking about.
Regular weekends. If I'm not weekends, they do it, right?
Right, regular weekends, yes. So that's
and just before Dussehra, they stop that because they replace the bulbs, and then the grandeur starts on the day of the Dussehra. And another fun fact would be, this is not a very old palace. I mean, this was completed in 1912, so it's a quite modern building if you see.
Apparently, the old one was burnt down, right?
Yes, burnt down.
Correct.
And if you happen to be inside and if you see the architecture, the thing and everything, it's just mind-boggling, and I mean, it's fit to be the king's palace, and those stained glass, the beautiful woodwork, it's just brilliant.
Absolutely. And it's not just for somebody looking from the outside, it's more about just the architecture from the outside and the lights that light up the whole thing, right? But there's actually so much more on the inside, which perhaps doesn't come out as much because you're not allowed to carry cameras, right, inside. So that's why so much of it doesn't come out, but there's like a lot to see inside the palace too, like the golden throne, the darbar-e-khas, the darbar-e-aam, the beautiful
chandeliers. I mean, it's just beautiful glass chandeliers. I mean, you just wish that you had one in your house. I
know. There is this perfect spot, I think, on the first floor, if I'm not wrong, where people are slowly sneaking their phones out and trying to take a picture.
Yes, even I tried. I will just stare at you and sorry. Something like that.
Because we were just standing there looking at people do that, and there was the security guy who was so sharp. He would just catch people from every angle of his sight. He would be like, "Hey, there!" He would start whistling, and then he would start whistling another person. But yeah, I think if they did allow photographs, those pictures would be so beautiful, especially the chandeliers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you're into shopping, this Mysore Palace also is a right place to do your shopping, because apparently there are official shops out there which sell sandalwood and sandal products out there.
Okay.
Of course, beautiful saris and all. These are official government shops and all at the palace. Just next to the palace, there is a section where all the shops are present and all.
Right, and I think right outside the palace there are a lot of tonga walas and a lot of autos also.
Autos.
Right, so that they keep waiting and asking you, do you want to go shop, and they take you to different shops basically. Maybe they have a cut. whatever and you shop. But they do take you to some nice places in the end of the day.
There is arrangement, these guys the Tongawalas will take you to a particular shop. And the arrangement is that whether you buy it or not, to bring that tourist to that shop, they'll get a minimum amount of money. So that's kind of, it's understood. And we were not really interested because we had hired a car, and so we were just waiting, and I was just photographing, and these people, they were just swarming around me,
Right.
Chalke, we'll go for a ride and all this and all. It was fun, and there are lots of temples also inside the compound, so
True.
it really takes a lot of time to visit this place.
Yeah, I think if you're really on a hurry, then you probably can touch and go, but it can actually be a good 3 to 4 day itinerary, and especially if you go there during
Absolutely.
Dussehra,
Mysore
right?
Palace itself, it's a quite long journey. I mean, if you have from one end to the other, I mean, if you really want to see it well, you'll get tired seeing the whole complex as such, and then that day just passes by completely.
Yeah, I understand there's about 12 temples within the complex also, apparently. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to see around. So, depending on your itinerary, you can plan it accordingly, right? If you want to keep it brief, or if you want to go in detail, it's all up to you, up to the time you have. But Mysore in itself, it has so much to offer.
Then there is Lalit Mahal Palace, which is now a hotel.
Right.
So you have two options. Either you can just photograph it from outside, but if you want to go inside, you can buy a ticket for 300 rupees, which would entitle you to also a cup of tea or coffee at the hotel. So you can buy that ticket and photograph around, have a cup of tea or coffee, and just go around, enjoy the view as such. You don't have to rent out a room. But if you do to have a kind of a royal life for a royal night, then do book a room out here. We did not get to book we were just, since we were traveling, so we came to the gate and we asked the guard, so we are not interested in the tea or coffee, can I please photograph? Initially the guard says no, it's not allowed, and then I said, I really don't have time, so can you just let me photograph? Then after 1 or 2 minutes, then he got tired and said, okay, just go, within 5 minutes you photograph and you come back. so you just need to be good to the security guard, and he will allow you inside.
Insider information.
And one more thing, to get the best view of this hotel or palace, whatever you call it, it's actually from the hilltop, actually from the Chamundi Hills.
Okay.
So make sure that there's a particular viewpoint. So make sure you tell the driver to stop, and so you get the best Lalit Mahal Palace from there.
Yeah, so definitely, because these are actual palaces, right, that have recently been converted into hotels.
Yes.
So no doubt that they look stunning both from close and from far off, like the Chamundi Hills. After Lalit Mahal, where did you head off to?
It was getting evening, and the best place, I had to go was Brindavan Gardens,
Yes, of course.
because first of all, the beautiful flowers, the fountains, and of course, there were typical 80s and 90s Hindi movie where Brindavan Gardens was the only place where you would have the
Tezab, and more recently, I think Raja Hindustani also was, they had a song shot there, right?
A Hindi movie had to be shot either at Ooty or at Brindavan Gardens,
Yeah, it's sad, right? These days I don't see them that often. People just prefer go to Switzerland, I guess. But
Switzerland.
Back in the day, there used to be a number of movies movie songs that used to be shot here.
Yeah,
and I think in that era, everybody's honeymoon picture had one spot of Brindavan Garden where there was this checkered, a slope with I think Radha and Krishna's statue right there, and you can see the fall behind. My mother, my aunt, everybody's got a picture there.
So it's better to go during the evening because obviously the lights come up, you can see the beautiful fountains, and in the evening also you can go around the boat ride around the dam. You just go around for a boat ride, and then finally there's a musical fountain which happens. You just need to walk to the other side, and then there is a kind of a half an hour to 45 minutes of the show happens, which is, it gets really crowded. So if you're on a weekend, make sure you take your spot well in advance because it really gets crowded. You have those school students or the school buses coming in with lots of children and all. So do take your place around the fountains, around half an hour back at least. Otherwise, you would really not be able to see anything.
Yeah.
The show lasts for around half an hour to 45 minutes. And after that, you are ready to go back. Make sure the parking of private vehicles is just right next to it. So you have your phone number of your driver so that you can quickly contact, because that's a very rush time because everybody wants to go and things really get crowded at that time. Vrindavan Gardens itself it's a huge, beautiful place. And if you are a photography lover, if you are into flower photography, I think this is the best place to be. It's just wonderful.
Absolutely. It's not just about the fountains, of course. There's a lot of flora and fauna around in terms of the greenery, etc., that one can photograph. And it actually reminded me recently, so sometime back we were in Dubai, so we were looking at the musical fountains in front of the Burj Khalifa. So it reminded me back to the Vrindavan Gardens. So
I hope you're not comparing them.
Of course not, but it was just nostalgic. Because this used to be like our Burj Khalifa, right?
And I remember my cousins. Whenever we used to visit with our cousins and all, they would be completely mesmerized. They would see, this looks like Singapore. I said, yeah,
exactly. Because back
in the 80s, 90s, this was something very, very different for them.
Yeah, it was pretty advanced for its time, right? It was pretty ahead of its time back in the 80s.
Absolutely.
So we've covered a range of places. Any more places to cover, Subhadip?
Mysore is almost complete. If you are really interested in Srirangapatna, you need a complete separate one full day to go around Srirangapatna.
True. Even though, it became popular during the times of Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan, right, Srirangapatna. So it does have
absolutely
its own share of beautiful palaces, summer palaces, then some great mosques also. One can go to little places like...
Darya Daulat Bagh is there.
Exactly.
You have that.
The fort.
Yeah, and of course, the most significant would be the place where Hyder Ali, Tipu Sultan, and Tipu Sultan's mother were there buried, the Gumbas. They are all buried together and all. And as Tipu Sultan was called the tiger, so his grave is marked with a tiger skin. I think it's a kind of a cloth or something, but it has the checkered pattern of a tiger because he was called the tiger. So it's
Shere Mysore.
Shere Mysore, right.
So definitely for somebody who's interested, I would personally suggest to keep Srirangapatna as a separate itinerary in itself. What we usually do is when we are getting back from our road trips to say places outside of Karnataka or even further ahead of Mysore, on our way back we make sure to make a stop and we explore little monuments, little pieces of Srirangapatna and around Mysore as well. I think that's a good way too, because if you're trying to club it with Mysore, it'll be a little bit of a rush. So I would suggest
it will be very difficult. So ideally, you should give it a separate itinerary, because that itself, Srirangapatna itself has a lot of things to see. The forts, the temples, the mausoleums. There is also the ghats and all the rivers and all the Sangam. If you see, it's a very large place to cover.
And the bird sanctuary as well on the way to Bangalore.
Yes, absolutely.
So maybe someday we can talk about that. Yes.
Apart from that, there are a few places in Mysore which, if you are interested, you can visit. And there is the kind of Indira Gandhi Rashtriya Manav Sangrahalaya, which is also a small museum, the National Museum of Natural History, Folklore Museum. Surprisingly, Mysore has quite a number of museums, and of course the food of Mysore. Whenever I'm going, I have to try it. Right. There are lots of good, beautiful restaurants out there. Have your typical meal and all. It's really wonderful.
The Mysore Masala Dosa.
The
Mysore Masala Dosa. Yes, Mysore Pak, and of course the iconic Mysore Pak. And Masala Dosa, and that's the staple for me. Whenever I go there, I have to have that for lunch. Dosa for lunch, for breakfast, for dinner, it has to be a dosa. I can't do with dosa all the time. It's just wonderful. It tastes really different.
Right. Absolutely. And the Mysore Pak as well. I think people who do not know, yes.
Yeah,
Mysore Pak.
I'm a Bengali, so for me sweets it's like so whenever I'm going down south in wherever, I bring kilos of Mysore Pak for me and for my family, but at the end I'm the one who finishes up those kilos of Mysore Pak,
Yes, so Mysore Pak, for someone who isn't aware of it, so is this like this very, I don't know, I wouldn't call it cake. I don't know, how would you, Subhadip, why don't you go ahead and describe it?
It's like a kind of it's like with besan you make it, you have it, and you have it ghee and ghee. It's like
Right.
death by ghee.
Exactly. I think that's
So
a
you have
really
something
nice name.
sweet.
Death by
You
ghee.
have you have something
DBG.
sweet, and you have excess of ghee and all, and then it's just wonderful. And it's made in a kind of a cake shape, and then cut in
Pieces,
rectangular
right?
shapes,
Yeah.
and sold by kgs and kilos and packets. And whoever is traveling out here, make sure you carry some kilos for your relatives. I'm sure they'll appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. And a little history about Mysore Pak. It was, the cooks of the Mysore Palace during Krishna Raja Wodeyars' time made the Mysore Pak. And I think when the king asked the name of the recipe, the name of the dish, the cook, he said the possible name he can give is Mysore Pak because it represented Mysore. So, yeah, it's been there in everybody's mind and taste palates, I think, since forever. So wonderful Mysore Pak. And of course, how can we forget the Mysore masala dosa as well? The lovely dosa with the masala on top and the pudi powder and everything over it. It's wonderful. So all you guys going there, please taste the Mysore masala dosa and the Mysore Pak. And anything else, Subhadip, that you want to add?
Yeah, and if you want to carry something to remember Mysore, make sure to buy those small wooden elephants.
Oh, yes.
Small wooden elephants. You get them out there. It's made out of sandalwood. It's officially sold out there. Smaller one and all. I have a collection of 4-5 of them from different era, from the 80s, and even I got one for my daughter. So make sure, because that the elephants and that symbolizes Mysore, the royalty, the grandeur, everything that symbolizes the Mysore. That you should keep that in mind, that it's everything to do with royalty and grandeur when it comes to Mysore.
Absolutely. It used to be so popular back in the day, right? Now it's lost a little bit of a sheen, but yeah, it is iconic. I would completely agree with that. And thank you so much, Subhadip, for covering or taking us on this fun ride around Mysore. But before we head towards the end of the interview, any further points to add, Subhadip?
Mysore is it's a wonderful place. Just one anecdote. When I booked the car, I asked, do we need a AC car? Then the guy told me, no, it's Mysore. The weather is fine. You don't need a AC car. You need to enjoy the air of Mysore to enjoy Mysore. So remember to enjoy the air of Mysore to enjoy the Mysore around. Overall, it's a nice place. If you really want to go around and see everything in details, it can take up to 3 to 4 days if you club Srirangapatna with it.
Sure.
Otherwise, you can do it in 2.5 days, but it will be very tight. So depend on your flexibility, plan accordingly. Weekends are always very crowded because it's near proximity to Bangalore. People do come out here and all for weekends and all. The rest of the days it's fine. It's quite a small town and not that big, so it can be easily covered. In order to cover all the different points, it's located around the city, so it's better to hire a car. Yep. Or if you have your own transportation, that would be really fine.
So thank you so much, Subhadip, for being a wonderful guide and taking us to our own Mysuru.
Our own backyard.
Yes.
My pleasure, actually.
Thank you so much.
And I would strongly suggest all our listeners to go check out Subhadip's blog as well, the indianvagabond.com. We'll add all the links in the show notes section, both the link to the blog as well as the blog post, where Subhadip has some wonderful pictures and wonderful words about Mysore too, so you can go check that out. And Subhadip, how can our listeners follow you on social media as well and keep up with your work?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you have to either search for Subhadip Mukherjee or Indian Vagabond, or if you Google Indian Vagabond, also you get to my website and my blog, and there I have all the links of my social media handles.
That's lovely. We'll add all of these links in the show notes section, so that way the listeners will have a ready reckoner to go follow Subhadip's great work. Again, thank you so much, Subhadip, for taking us on this royal tour of sorts, right, around this princely kingdom of Mysore or Mysuru that has so many wonderful memories from both our childhoods and I'm yours, sure a lot of people will relate to that. So thank you so much, Subhadip.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
That was yet another great episode of the Musafir Stories. If you guys like the show, please subscribe to us on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Audioboom, Savan, Pocket Casts, Castbox, Stitcher, or any other podcasting app available on iOS or Android. Please do leave us a review on iTunes. It goes a long way in the show's discoverability. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram We go by the handle The Musafir Stories. Or, if it suits you, you could email us at themusafirstories@gmail.com or visit our website at www.themusafirstories.com for more information. All of these links will be made available in the show notes section of each episode. So here's to more traveling, sharing, and inspiring. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, happy travels and goodbye.